Israel's National Security Advisor has indicated that a war against Iran-backed militia Hezbollah is likely after the Israeli military eliminates Hamas. He further asserted how the situation in North must be changed to make sure that the residents of the North are no longer displaced in their land. The latest warnings by Israel's National Security Advisor comes a day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned of turning Beirut into Gaza. A multi-front war seems to be stirring stronger than ever.
Well, Israel was very fearful that Hezbollah was going to enter the war with Hamas, and Hamas mounted a lot of pressure on Hezbollah to join the war on October 7th, and I think that everyone's a little bit surprised that Hezbollah did not join the war. And there's all kinds of thoughts and intelligence on why that may be, and the reason is likely that Hezbollah is scared that it'll drag Lebanon into a war that will then make it lose favor in Lebanon. But in Israel, there is this growing fear that there appeared to be previously this sense of security, the sense that Hezbollah and Hamas train a lot on the border, but really they're never going to attack Israel. All they can do is launch missiles. October 7th blew up in Israel's face and showed, no, the fact that these organizations are constantly training means they can invade one day.
Meanwhile, Israel's National Security Advisor also outlined the fear regarding Hezbollah's Radwan unit, which is capable of crossing the border within minutes and starting a murderous rampage in northern communities. A similar style of attack which was spearheaded by the Hamas militant group on October 7th.
Very much fears that attack. I think Hezbollah has lost the element of surprise. What Hamas really had on October 7th was a vast element of surprise. And that's one of the reasons that Hezbollah likely will not do that in the coming days. But what Israel is trying to indicate is, let's say that the war with Gaza is over, either through defeating Hamas somehow or some sort of ceasefire or something is over. The idea that Israel can just go back and civilians can go back and expect to live peacefully near the border with Lebanon is not realistic. Now, there is already, dating back to 2006, a UN resolution, Resolution 1701, that says that Hezbollah cannot maintain its forces south of the Litani River, i.e. it is supposed to be pushed farther back in Lebanon. So what Israel is trying to say is it wants a diplomatic solution and it wants Hezbollah away from the border, trying to imply Lebanon can do this, maybe other forces can do this, maybe UNIFIL can do this. If not, then Israel will have to do this.
Israel has said that it does not want to fight simultaneously on two fronts, but made it clear that if Hezbollah remains a dangerous threat, then it will have no choice but to impose a new reality in the north.
Israel has invaded Lebanon several times, and back in 1982, it actually took over most of Lebanon and tried to even install a president and have a peace treaty with Lebanon. That obviously did not work. But I think what they're trying to say is that right now the region is really poised to explode. There's Iranian militias in Lebanon and in Syria and in Iraq and in Yemen, and all of them are threatening that if this war escalates further and further, it's going to explode. I think what they're trying to say is that Israel's not going to be willing to go back to a situation where it just lives the way it was and pretends that there is not this Iranian threat from the north. So something has to change as far as Israel is concerned with that equation. It's possible that what they're indicating is that it will be an all-out regional war, that Israel will be willing to, tear off all the gloves and take over Lebanon in order to try to impose a new reality.
Israel faces hostilities on multiple other fronts. Remember, Iran leads the regional axis of resistance against Israel, which along with Hezbollah includes armed groups from Syria, Iraq and Yemen. Some of these armed groups have attacked Israel and U.S. interests in the region in recent weeks. Earlier this week, tensions around the Red Sea rose when 3 commercial ships were attacked by ballistic missiles. They were launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels. The Houthis have vowed to target all Israel-bound ships in the Red Sea. Elijah J. Magnia is a war correspondent and also an analyst. He is now joining us live from Brussels. Good to see you, Mr. Elijah, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be with you.
What will it take to take down or even defeat the axis of resistance headed by Iran and its proxies? And what will be a war between Israel and Hezbollah mean?
Well, first of all, the members of the axis of the resistance, i.e. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iraqi Hashtishabi, the Houthis. All these are local forces, and they are local people. They are part of the population and the society. Therefore, it is impossible to defeat them unless you have to remove the entire society. And this is what Israel is trying to do in Gaza by destroying all of Gaza and removing the Palestinian to Sinai in Egypt, had Egypt accepted. So this is not that easy and straightforward to kill all the Palestinians in Gaza or to display them, and to do the same in Lebanon, where you have more than 2 million Shia who support Hezbollah, but not only the Shia who support Hezbollah, but there are many Christians and Sunni who are standing with Hezbollah. Now, this is a question that everybody in the West that is concerned about what's happening in that part of West Asia is asking today. There is a war between Hezbollah and Israel. The answer is yes. There is already an ongoing war where Hezbollah has lost more than 100 men, and the Israelis have lost also more than 100 between killed and wounded. Every single day, there are between 7 to 10 attacks on both sides. What is changing after 64 days of war on Gaza and the involvement of Hezbollah from day 2 is the caliber of the explosive that each side is using. So it's going in crescendo and increasing every single day. Now, the Americans and the French are trying to use diplomacy to talk to the Lebanese government about the implementation of UN Resolution 1701. Hezbollah is saying we are bound by the ministerial agreement where the government of Lebanon recognized the role of the legitimate Lebanese army, the legitimacy of the population, and the resistance to protect the Lebanese territory. The problem is the Lebanese army doesn't have the weapons that Hezbollah has, because all the parties involved, the Americans, the British, the French, are not delivering to the Lebanese army weapons that can create an equilibrium with Israel. This is why Iran is supplying Hezbollah, and Hezbollah has been successful in pushing the Israelis out of Lebanon and end their almost all of occupation in the year 2000. There are Hezbollah special forces, the Ridwan, as you rightly mentioned, on the borders. There are several thousands that are there for the last 10 years. And they maintain a kind of deterrence with the Israelis, stopping the Israelis from thinking about invading Lebanon, particularly after the war in 2006. Are these going to cross the border? I don't think so, because everybody has seen what Israel is capable of, its power of destruction by flattening completely Gaza, destroying the infrastructure, cutting water, electricity, etc., and crippling the economy, and killing so far between 17 to 18,000 people and wounding around 60,000 or more. So this is not something that Hezbollah will envisage, because it doesn't have the legitimacy to cross the border, and it will have not only Israel, but like now, the Americans, the British, the French supporting this war, and the German, the Australian, and everybody financing and supplying weapons to Israel so it can continue bombing. Can Israel afford to front? Yes, it can. It has the military capability. It has the Americans on the ground, 2,000 of the special Delta forces organizing the war, instructing, advising, offering intelligence services, offering intelligence information. The British from Cyprus are doing the same, etc.
All right. I actually wanted to ask you the question of, can Israel afford a two-front war? But you've already answered that. I think going forward, can and would a war between Israel and Hezbollah actually, what would be the repercussions? That's what I'm trying to ask here. What would be the repercussions of war or a two-front war between Israel and Lebanon, and now you have Gaza. Briefly.
Excellent question. So far, Hezbollah and Israel have been limited their exchange of fire between 2 and 5 kilometers. If that extends, Lebanon will go back to the Stone Age. Israel has this capability, and Hezbollah has also the capability to destroy Haifa, Tel Aviv, and all the oil platform, airport, and harbors. So it is destructive on both sides.
All right, I've been talking to Elijah J. Magnia, who is a war correspondent and also an analyst. Elijah, as always, thank you very much for talking to WION World is One today.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.